Welcome to SoulShift, the podcast where we explore the transformative power of community wisdom and its role in cultivating radical possibilities. I'm your host, JyOba X, and today we're diving deep into the life and legacy of one of the most profound thinkers of the 20th century, James Baldwin. It just happens to be his 100th birthday anniversary. His birthday was on August the 2nd, which makes him a Leo. And it's time to celebrate James Baldwin, his creativity, his writing. He's an inspiration to community wisdom, and he inspires and informs community wisdom as we theorize community wisdom here on this podcast on the regular. So sit back, relax, take in the knowledge, think about community wisdom and how we can use it to further advance social justice, as well as advance the work that we as activists are doing in our communities. And you don't have to be an activist, right? You could be a wisdom practitioner. You can be an elder. You can just be somebody who is in and of community and cares about its well-being, and you're not concerned about any titles thereof, right? So you are in the right space. So Baldwin's insights on identity, society, and the power of community are as relevant today as they were in his time. We explore how Baldwin's wisdom can illuminate our path toward a more connected and compassionate world. So the life of Baldwin. James Baldwin was a novelist, a playwright, an essayist, poet, and a social critic. He dedicated his life to examining the complexities of race, identity, and the human experience. Baldwin was born in Harlem in 1924. His early life was marked by the struggles of growing up Black in America, experiences that would deeply influence his work. Baldwin's writings, such as Go Tell It on the Mountain, The Fire Next Time, and Notes of a Native Son, they provide profound insights into the nature of society and the individual's role within it. His voice was a beacon of truth during the civil rights movement and remains a powerful source of inspiration today. To understand Baldwin's legacy, we must first look at his early life and career. Born to a single mother in Harlem, Baldwin's childhood was marked by poverty and a difficult relationship with his stepfather, who was a preacher. Baldwin found solace in reading and writing, eventually becoming a child preacher himself. This experience in the church profoundly shaped his understanding of the human condition, spirituality, and community. In his early 20s, Baldwin moved to Paris. Oh man, I wish I would have moved to Paris in my 20s. Lord knows who and what I would have been today, but Paris, beautiful city. But Baldwin, he moved to Paris in his 20s. He followed the footsteps of many Black American artists, seeking a reprieve from the oppression of racism here in the United States. It was in Paris that he wrote some of his most important works, reflecting on his experiences and the world around him. Baldwin's time abroad gave him a unique perspective on race and identity, allowing him to critique American society with both intimacy and distance. I am a big advocate for us as people, and especially us as Black people, traveling outside of the United States, traveling outside of our little territories. I know I come from places in Louisiana and Detroit where there are brothers and sisters who are happy just to make it across to Arkansas or to go to Texas and Dallas, never to leave Ruston or Monroe, Louisiana for any reason. Detroit, there are brothers and sisters living in the hood who have barely left the state of Michigan, unless they're going to Chicago, Cleveland, or down south to visit family. I think it's really important for us to get that diasporic experience. And when I say diasporic, that means experiencing Blackness within other countries. I went to Cuba, and trust me, being Black in Cuba is different than being Black in the United States of America, just like it's different being Black in France, in England, Colombia, or Brazil. Even if you're just going to Canada. I know in Detroit, going to Canada used to be really easy before 9/11, but even just going to Canada, just to get that international experience, I think is really, really important. We, as Black people, need to get out of the United States and understand our place in the world, not just within this country and the localities and the places that we have been reared in. So Baldwin, he's an example for that as well, right? It inspired his creative works. It can inspire us all to do a lot of different things and experience a lot of different things as well. I think that's really important for us, not just as Black people, but as humans. Let's delve into Baldwin's writings and explore our soulship theory of community wisdom. So, in The Fire Next Time, Baldwin writes, if we do not falter in our duty now, we may be able to end the racial nightmare and achieve our country and change the history of the world. These words highlight Baldwin's belief in the power of collective action and community wisdom. He understood that true change comes from the ground up, from communities united in their pursuit of justice and love, community wisdom. Baldwin's essay, Down at the Cross, discusses his experiences with the church and how the Black church serves as a pillar of the community. He saw the church not just as a religious institution, but as a place of refuge, solidarity, and resistance. I don't know if the church sees itself in this space. I know there's a lot of religious leaders within Black communities and Black churches represented within a lot of different denominations, from United Methodist to Pentecostal to Missionary Baptist. All of these denominations often are framed as a monolith, and it's far from a monolith. Nevertheless, the church is where we congregate on a lot of different levels, and that has been the case since emancipation and before emancipation. If there was any type of freedom that we had as Black people here in the United States, we had access to religion. Granted, it wasn't based in West African spiritual traditions or even Central African spiritual traditions. It was based in Christianity, which is not foundational to who we are as Black people. Nevertheless, that was the one space where we were free to explore our relationship with a higher power. That's probably a whole nother episode. That's a whole nother discussion. But I think the important point here is that church, it is a communal space. Whether you consider yourself religious or not, we are bonded in the Black experience here within the United States. It's where we have organized. It's where we have found solidarity with each other, no matter the denomination. So I think it's really important to take in Baldwin's example and his thinking that religious institutions are places of refuge and solidarity. And most importantly to me as a social justice activist, a place of resistance, a spiritual place of resistance. And for Black people, I think that is really powerful for who we are. In a lot of cases, we are graceful to our oppressors on a whole lot of different levels. We're criticized by a lot of activists that we give too much grace to our oppressors. But I think that's a part of our spirituality. That's just a part of who we are and what our ancestors were about, right? There's a right way to do things. There's a wrong way to do things. And there's also a time and place for certain things as well. Hence our conversations about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and how Martin Luther King is associated with nonviolent methods of civil disobedience. Malcolm X was on the other end of the spectrum, along with the Black Panthers and the Black Power movement, about protecting and serving our own. Personally, I believe in a hybrid, a mix of the two, given what the current times. We have to protect ourselves. When we don't, and we blindly think that all things are equal and all is right in the world and that the current systems in place will protect us, they don't. We can just examine the whole experience after Reconstruction when Jim Crow came about. If that utopia and that fantasy was real, then Greenwood and Black Wall Street would still be around today and not us memorializing what happened at that time and space. And that just didn't happen in Tulsa. That happened in Black communities across the entire country. We were actually building communities that were economically thriving and they were focused on Black people. And what happened? White people decided that we didn't deserve it and it wasn't ours to have. And what did they do? They pretty much just made attempts successfully in many cases just to wipe them off of the planet, right? Those places that we created to be a part of the American democracy, the American experiment. When they didn't do that, what did they do? They built freeways through it. They built freeways through our neighborhoods, Black Bottom in Detroit, and thousands of other urban communities across the country, from New York to Detroit to Chicago to Dallas to Portland. Major freeways, rest assured, more than likely they were built through Black communities. And that was intentional. That was intentional, right? I'll stop ranting and I'll take it back to the subject at hand about the importance of churches and them being places of refuge, solidarity, and resistance. Within community wisdom, I believe that there are assets. When you map out the assets that we have to advance social justice and racial equity in our communities, in some cases, we have very few socio-cultural institutions that we can refer to as assets. But we have them, and they're powerful institutions as well. In some places, there's a church on every corner operated by a Black pastor and a Black congregation and Black religious leadership. There's no reason that all of those denominations and churches and religious/spiritual leaders should be talking about their. And I know some churches do it, but they rarely do it as a collective. What radical possibility comes into play when they all come together and start operating within this religious solidarity that's a part of this larger effort? I think it happens in some cases. It may be happening today because I don't know everything. And if it is happening in your community, then let me know. And let's figure out how do we amplify that and encourage that across all Black communities in the country, because it's just one component. It's one component of the bigger picture. Baldwin recognized the importance of communal spaces and fostering a sense of belonging and empowerment, community wisdom. In social justice spaces, we call these safe and brave spaces for people impacted by oppressive systems to survive and sometimes thrive within those systems or constructs. These are the spaces where the essence of community wisdom is cultivated in Black and Black queer communities. I argue these are spaces where Black queer world making provides us with radical concepts that inform how we can develop organizing strategies and frameworks that inspire African diasporic solidarity. So Baldwin's reflections on community, they extend to his analysis of love and identity. In The Fire Next Time, he writes about the necessity of love in overcoming hate and division. He saw love as a radical force capable of transforming individuals and communities. For Baldwin, love was not just an emotion, but an active commitment to justice and equality. In his novel, Go Tell It on the Mountain, Baldwin explores the complexities of family, faith, and identity. The story, which mirrors Baldwin's own experiences, depicts a young boy's struggle to reconcile his personal desire with the expectations of his community. This tension between individual identity and communal belonging is a recurring theme in Baldwin's work. as well as my research on the theory of community wisdom, which can be found on my website at www.JyObaX.com. That's JyObaX.com, along with a video playlist on the SoulShift YouTube channel as well, which there are two specific videos that talk about community wisdom and wisdom practitioners, and they're in their own separate playlist. And this one is likely to be included on that playlist as well, since there's a lot of references to community wisdom and how it intersects with James Baldwin's thinking, activism, creativity, and witness to racial equity during the civil rights era. Now, in my thesis, I conclude that Black, queer, and LGBTQ plus people seek communal solidarity, with Blackness being above our queer identity. Simply put, the work of wisdom practitioners in Black queer communities instinctually embarks upon a journey of Black queer world-making projects to establish ourselves as unapologetically Black and queer individuals and communities seeking our rightful place within the African diaspora. The fact this episode focuses on James Baldwin is no coincidence, since we don't believe in coincidences here, right? Since he himself identified as a Black queer man, it leads us to lean into this space as we analyze his work and his place in American history, but more specifically in American Black history. Baldwin's insights are not just historical artifacts. They are incredibly relevant to our current social and political landscape. Today, we see movements and organizations drawing on Baldwin's wisdom, emphasizing the importance of community solidarity and collective action. Baldwin's call for love and justice resonates in the voices of activists and organizers fighting for a more equitable and just world. One such movement is the Black Lives Matter movement. This global network of advocates for nonviolent civil disobedience against police brutality and all the racially motivated violence against Black people. Baldwin's emphasis on the necessity of love and justice is echoed in BLM's mission and actions, seeking to build a society where Black lives are valued and protected, which gets to the very core of the SoulShift project and podcast. Another prominent organization is the Equal Justice Initiative, founded by Bryan Stevenson. EJI works to end mass incarceration, excessive punishment, and racial inequality. Stevenson, much like Baldwin, critiques the criminal justice system and advocates for civil rights, striving to create a more just society through legal representation, education, and public advocacy. The NAACP, one of the oldest civil rights organizations in America, also aligns closely with Baldwin's vision. Founded in 1909, the NAACP has a long history of fighting for racial justice and civil rights, using litigation, advocacy, and education to combat racial discrimination and promote equality. Another important organization is the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC. The SPLC specializes in civil rights and public interest litigation, combating hate, intolerance, and discrimination. Baldwin's commitment to justice and equality is reflected in the SPLC's mission to protect vulnerable populations and promote justice. Color of Change is another organization that embodies Baldwin's principles. As the largest online racial justice organization in the United States, Color of Change campaigns against practices that unfairly hold Black people back and champions solutions that move everyone forward. Baldwin's vision of activism and systemic change is central to their digital campaigns for social justice. The Bail Project also reflects Baldwin's critique of the criminal justice system. By disrupting the money bail system, one person at a time, the Bail Project seeks to combat mass incarceration, and the systemic inequalities that disproportionately affect marginalized communities. Campaign Zero, another initiative, presents comprehensive solutions to end police violence in America. Their data-driven approach to policy recommendations aligns with Baldwin's calls for systemic reform and accountability in law enforcement. An important aspect of Baldwin's life that is often underrepresented is his identity as a Black gay man and how this influences views on intersectionality within the struggle for justice. There is a Black gay pride movement separate from the larger majority gay pride movement that you're used to hearing in June. The Black gay pride movement, which began in the 1990s, advances Baldwin's legacy by creating spaces that celebrate and advocate for the Black LGBTQ plus community. This movement, the Black gay pride movement, it underscores Baldwin's belief in the importance of community spaces that embrace all facets of our identity. Central to this movement is the Center for Black Equity, an organization that promotes a multinational network of LGBTQ plus communities, ranging from Washington, D.C., to Detroit, to Atlanta, to Los Angeles, to Johannesburg, to London. It's a global network of Black LGBT plus pride events and activities around the globe. And they are represented by the Center for Black Equity, of which I am fortunate to have been a founding organization member with Hotter Than July back when it was called the International Federation of Black LGBT Prides. Now it's the Center for Black Equity. If you're curious about the Black gay pride movement, check it out. There are Black gay people across the globe who don't necessarily identify with the majority gay pride movement, because Black gay culture and white gay culture, or the majority gay culture, are two separate things. They have separate priorities. And trust me when I tell you, it is a thing. And organizers of Black, queer, LGBTQ plus prides have been pushing back with the majority population about us separating ourselves. They think we should all be one and advocate for one, but we have different priorities. And as I mentioned earlier, our identities are more grounded in our Blackness than it is our queerness. And that's harder for us larger pride organizers and communities to really understand. And you really don't understand it unless you're in it, right? So the Center for Black Equity, it prides itself on advocating for health, economic empowerment, and social equity within the Black LGBTQ plus community. CBE's work aligns with Baldwin's vision of justice that encompasses not only racial, but also sexual identity, striving for a world where everyone can live free from oppression. The Center for Black Equity works to ensure that the voices of Black LGBTQ plus individuals are heard, advocating for our rights and celebrating our contributions to society. Baldwin's life and work are a testament to the importance of such advocacy, as he himself lived at the intersection of multiple marginalized identities. Educational initiatives like Facing History and Ourselves and the James Baldwin Project ensure Baldwin's work continues to educate and inspire new generations. By incorporating Baldwin's writings into curricula, these programs foster critical thinking and discussions about social justice, encouraging students to understand the interconnectedness of their own experiences with broader societal issues. So at SoulShift, our mission is to foster connections that lead to personal and communal transformation. James Baldwin's work challenges us to look beyond the individual and see the interconnectedness of our struggles and our triumphs. By embracing Baldwin's vision, we can deepen our understanding of community wisdom and work together to create a more just and compassionate world. Baldwin's belief in the power of love and community aligns perfectly with our goals here at SoulShift. His emphasis on the necessity of spiritual and emotional growth resonates with our focus on mindfulness and personal development. Baldwin's life and work reminds us that true wisdom comes from the collective experiences and insights of the community. And that's the very definition of community wisdom. So as we wrap up today's episode, let's reflect on how we can integrate Baldwin's wisdom into our own lives and communities. Consider reading one of Baldwin's books, joining a local community initiative, or simply engaging in conversations about race, identity, and justice. If you need some inspiration on how to engage these conversations, I strongly encourage you to do a search on YouTube of James Baldwin's interviews. The man was fearless in how he engaged everybody, but especially how he communicated with white people about race at a time when it was challenging. A lot of things were happening that were just unfathomable, and darn right. Oh, this witness, this poet, this man, this Black gay man is in front of audiences speaking from intellect, inspiration, spirituality, and really speaking truth to power, telling white people who they are to their face and explaining to them the Black experience and how the country has failed them. So by doing these things, we honor Baldwin's legacy and contribute to the ongoing struggle for a better world. I want to thank you. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the life and legacy of James Baldwin. Stay tuned for our upcoming episode where we continue to explore the intersections of spirituality, community, and personal transformation. I really think the next episode is going to be digging into the differences between the Black Lives Matter movement and the movement for Black lives. So if you need a little bit of clarity on the differences between the two, we're going to touch on that. Join us. And remember, at SoulShift, we believe in the power of community wisdom and the transformative potential of love and understanding. Let's carry Baldwin's wisdom forward as we work together to create a brighter future. Thank you for tuning in to SoulShift. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. Drop a comment. If you have additional insights about James Baldwin or other social justice warriors representative of our mission, please share in the comments and in all of our platforms where you find SoulShift. I would love to engage with you in more conversation. Stay curious, stay connected, and keep transforming those radical possibilities into promise. And let's keep steadily soul-shifting society together. I'm JyOba X, and this is SoulShift. Until next time, peace and blessings.